Adolf Hitler is remembered as one of the most destructive figures in human history, a man whose ideas and actions plunged the world into war and led to the deaths of tens of millions. But Hitler was not born a dictator. He emerged from obscurity, shaped by personal failure, political chaos, and a society desperate for answers. To understand how such devastation became possible, one must trace the path of his rise, examine the crimes committed under his rule, and confront the reasons for his ultimate downfall. Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in the small Austrian town of Braunau am Inn. His childhood was marked by conflict and instability. His father, Alois, was authoritarian and often abusive, while his mother, Clara, was gentle and deeply devoted to him. Hitler performed poorly in school and frequently clashed with teachers, rejecting discipline and authority. From an early age, he dreamed of becoming an artist, believing it to be his destiny. However, his ambitions were shattered when he was rejected twice by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. These failures left him humiliated, impoverished, and increasingly resentful. Living in Vienna as a struggling young man, Hitler was exposed to extreme nationalist and anti-Semitic ideas that were widespread in parts of the city at the time. He absorbed propaganda that blamed Jews and other minorities for economic hardship and social decline. Though he was powerless then, these ideas would later form the foundation of his ideology. Vienna shaped his worldview, convincing him that history was a struggle between races and that Germany's future depended on racial purity and absolute unity. In 1913, Hitler moved to Germany, and when World War I began the following year, he volunteered eagerly for the German army. The war gave him purpose and identity. He served as a messenger on the Western Front, witnessing death and destruction on an industrial scale. Hitler was wounded twice and received the Iron Cross for bravery, an honor that filled him with pride. When Germany surrendered in 1918, Hitler was devastated. Like many Germans, he could not accept defeat. He embraced the belief that Germany had been betrayed by internal enemies rather than defeated militarily, a myth that would later be used to justify hatred and violence. After the war, Germany was in chaos. The Treaty of Versailles stripped the country of territory, military power, and economic stability. Hyperinflation destroyed savings, unemployment soared, and faith in democracy collapsed. Hitler remained in the army briefly and was assigned to observe political groups. In 1919, he attended a meeting of a small nationalist organization called the German Workers' Party. He quickly discovered that he had a powerful talent for public speaking. His speeches were emotional, aggressive, and filled with simple answers to complex problems. He blamed Germany's suffering on Jews, communists, and the democratic government. Hitler soon joined the party and helped transform it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party. He crafted an ideology based on extreme nationalism, racism, anti-Semitism, and the idea that Germany needed a strong leader to restore its greatness. By the early 1920s, Hitler had become the face of the movement. In 1923, he attempted to seize power in Munich in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. The coup failed, and Hitler was arrested and sentenced to prison.
Prison became a turning point rather than an end. While incarcerated, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his political beliefs and future plans. He argued that history was driven by racial struggle and that Jews were Germany's greatest enemy. He also concluded that power could not be taken by force alone. It must be achieved through legal means. When he was released, Hitler rebuilt the Nazi Party, focusing on propaganda, organization, and exploiting public fear. The Great Depression of 1929 transformed Hitler's fortunes. As the global economy collapsed, millions of Germans lost their jobs and hope. The democratic government appeared weak and incapable of solving the crisis. Hitler presented himself as a savior, promising jobs, national revival, and restored pride. His message resonated with a population desperate for change. By 1932, the Nazi Party had become the largest party in the German parliament. In January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Many believed they could control him. They were wrong. Within months, Hitler dismantled Germany's democratic institutions. After a suspicious fire at the Reichstag building, he used emergency powers to silence opposition, arrest political enemies, and eliminate civil liberties. By 1934, Hitler had consolidated absolute power and declared himself Führer, leader of the German people. Once in power, Hitler transformed Germany into a totalitarian state. Independent media was destroyed, propaganda flooded every aspect of life, and dissent was punished with imprisonment or death. The Nazi regime promoted racial ideology as state policy. Jews were stripped of citizenship, banned from professions, and subjected to increasing violence. Laws institutionalized discrimination, while propaganda dehumanized entire groups of people. In 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, triggering World War II. His early military successes stunned the world. Germany rapidly conquered much of Europe, using blitzkrieg tactics that combined speed, coordination, and terror. But war was not Hitler's only objective. Under his rule, the Nazis carried out the Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, including Roma, disabled individuals, political opponents, and prisoners of war. Concentration camps and extermination camps were established across occupied Europe. Industrialized murder became state policy. Victims were transported in cattle cars, stripped of their humanity, and killed in gas chambers or worked to death. These crimes were not accidents of war. They were the result of deliberate planning and ideological obsession. Hitler rarely appeared in public during this time, but his orders and worldview drove the machinery of genocide. As the war continued, Hitler's decisions grew increasingly irrational. He refused to listen to his generals, underestimated his enemies, and launched disastrous campaigns, most notably the invasion of the Soviet Union. Germany became trapped in a war on multiple fronts. Allied bombing destroyed cities, and the German army began to collapse under relentless pressure. By 1945, Germany was in ruins. Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, while Allied troops advanced from the west. Hitler retreated into an underground bunker, isolated and delusional, still believing in victory despite overwhelming evidence of defeat. On April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide. Days later, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Hitler's death did not erase the devastation he caused. Europe lay in ruins, millions were dead, and the world was forced to confront the reality of genocide.
His rise serves as a warning of how economic despair, political instability, propaganda, and hatred can allow extremism to flourish. Adolf Hitler was not a supernatural evil. He was a human being whose ideas were embraced by a society that failed to stop him in time. The story of Adolf Hitler is not just about one man. It is a lesson in vigilance, responsibility, and the dangers of blind loyalty and unchecked power. History remembers him not for greatness, but for destruction. And it is through remembering that the world hopes never to repeat such darkness again.